So, folks, there's this man named Donald J. Trump, and he's been doing everything in his power to distract from the fact that for over a decade, his best friend was one Jeffrey Epstein, one of the world's most prolific sex traffickers and child predators. And, well, things just keep getting weirder, stranger, more bizarre. And earlier today, a judge basically slapped down one of the strategies that Trump was trying to pursue, which was to get the Department of Justice to petition for the grand jury records to be open to the public from the Ghislaine Maxwell case. And for those of you who don't know, Ghislaine Maxwell was Jeffrey Epstein's partner, and also the person who groomed children for Jeffrey Epstein to molest and also traffic to other rich, powerful men. Why is it interesting that a judge smacked down this attempt? Why was the attempt even being made if Donald Trump, as he seems to be, was afraid of being implicated by the Epstein file? Well, what's interesting about it is that largely everyone kind of agrees that there's not going to be anything in the grand jury records about this. It's not like everything that is in the records is not really going to implicate Donald Trump, because the grand jury is convened to talk about the person who is the subject of the grand jury. So it's all going to be related to Ghislaine Maxwell. And also it's bizarre because the government already has all of the stuff, all of the files, all of the evidence that they collected from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. You know, in a past video on this subject, we went through the pages and pages of itemized things that were taken from Jeffrey Epstein's estate that would include information about who he was doing dealings with. You know, we're talking like terabytes upon terabytes upon terabytes of information obtained by the FBI. We also know that the FBI put people on like 24-hour, 48-hour long shifts to go through all of this material to find out what they could release to the public. So we know that they already have this. We know that the large amount of it was already sorted through. So what possible use is it to unseal these grand jury records? That's part of what's interesting here, right? 10 hours ago, a judge's brutal rebuke of Trump's Epstein gambit. Let's see here. On Monday, a key moment arrived, confirmation that the administration's big initial move towards supposed transparency was in fact a smokescreen. Trump's first effort to quell the building backlash was to push for the unsealing of grand jury testimony in the Epstein and Maxwell cases. But even at the time, experts cautioned how limited a step this appeared to be. A judge has now rejected that push in the Maxwell case, but what's key here is his reasoning. It's not that the information is too sensitive, as some wagered it might be. It's that it simply isn't new. In other words, the White House's first big move towards shedding light was trying to release documents that don't do that at all. And the thrust of Judge Paul Engelmeyer's ruling is that this indeed looks for all intents and purposes like that smokescreen. Quote, the administration's entire premise that the Maxwell grand jury materials would bring to light meaningful new information about Epstein's and Maxwell's crimes, or the government's investigation into them, is demonstrably false. He said he asked the administration to identify what information would be new, but it highlighted only scattered words, clauses, and occasional sentences. The judge also said in a footnote that even some of that limited highlighted information was already covered by public testimony at Maxwell's trial. Engelmeyer said those familiar with the case would thus learn next to nothing new, and that the information contains no details about anyone besides Epstein and Maxwell having sex with a minor, any supposed clients of Epstein's, any unknown means or methods of Epstein's and Maxwell's crimes, any new places where the crimes occurred, the path of the government's investigation, anything about the circumstances of Epstein's death. In other words, the materials contain basically nothing of interest on the key points that animate those who want to know more about the Epstein files, which is pretty interesting. I mean, we kind of already knew that, but it's nice that a judge looking at all this information basically said, yeah, you guys are full of shit. I'm not doing this. So where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us with a pretty interesting situation that's been unfolding, which is that Donald Trump's former personal defense attorney met with Ghislaine Maxwell for 2 days, after which they immediately moved her to a new location at a lower security prison. And she then put out a statement saying that, I don't know anything about Donald Trump being in the Epstein files. And that the deal was done. That's kind of strange, right? Should raise some questions. Because Ghislaine Maxwell isn't just someone who set children up to be molested. She also sexually abused children. She was there helping Epstein do that in the moment. So it does raise some questions why, out of the blue, after she's already been sentenced, after she's already in her prison, doing her prison time, that Donald Trump sends the second most powerful lawyer in the country to talk with her personally for 2 days. And that lawyer also happened to be his former defense attorney. That's real weird. We also have him on record saying that, well, he had to make sure that she had nothing else to say that would be inconvenient to anyone. Damaging. Unnecessarily damaging to anyone. Yeah, this is a little bit sussy, to say the least. And I have some new details, according to, again, Mueller, she wrote, so take it with a grain of salt. But Mueller, she wrote, managed to get information on Maxwell's current conditions.
18 months. 18 months.
Stone Corbell, thank you very much for being subscribed for 18 months. Appreciate it. So, today we learned from Adam Klasfeld at All Rise News that Senator Whitehouse has penned a letter to the director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, William Marshall, demanding answers surrounding the redesignation and transfer of convicted serial sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell to a minimum security facility. That's interesting. As part of his inquiry, Senator Whitehouse is demanding documents from the BOP involving... Okay. According to a report I have reviewed, provided by a source who wishes to remain anonymous, I can reveal some of the information requested in numbers 5 through 7 of Senator Whitehouse's letter. According to a source, Maxwell's transfer code is 308, Lesser Security Transfer. This transfer code is normally reserved for inmates whose point total has come down, but sex offenders are never transferred to minimum security facilities. Her security point score is 27. This total is comprised of 20-point custody score and a 7-point base score. Here is her 20-point custody score. She has a 7-point base score, which is the highest severity because of her sex offender status. Despite her score of 27 resulting in a minimum security level, Bureau of Prisons policy does not allow people with a sex offender PSF, public safety factor, to serve their sentences in minimum security facilities. Someone has to waive the PSF to make that move. As you can see here, her management variable says PSF WAV, and her PSF is sex offender. This indicates that she is a threat to the public because of her sex offender status, and her management variable of PSF WAV indicates her sex offender status has been waived in order to facilitate her move to a minimum security facility. What stands out here is the custody level out, which allows her to leave the minimum security campus for work assignments, much like Jeffrey Epstein was allowed to leave prison as part of the sweetheart deal he got from Alex Acosta that was penned by Alan Dershowitz. So, they're literally going to let her out of prison. So she has gone from being in a, she's gone from being in prison to now they're going to let they're going to let a sex offender, someone who raped children, out. And you gotta wonder, why? Why? What on earth could cause the President of the United States to send his personal lackey to this woman who is currently convicted and serving her time for raping children? What could possibly be the motive there? Only to have her transferred to one of the least secure facilities with a pass to get out of jail.
Welcome to your first night being a security guard at a minimum security facility watching an important prisoner. Watch the power levels and security cam till 6.
It's honestly shocking. I mean, well, I don't even know how to process this, but Socket the Nuke, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. Now, just want to throw this out there. It does seem like conservatives just are kind of getting over it a little bit. Kind of seems like conservatives have really moved on past the whole caring about children being raped thing. Here's Harry Enton on CNN.
Trying to shift the narrative and blame Democrats.
I laugh at the Democrats who are now all of a sudden so interested in the Epstein files. For 4 years, Joe Biden and the Democrats did absolutely nothing about this story.
Yeah, so maybe it's time for J.D. Vance to do something about that story, huh?
And there are new numbers this morning showing something of a shift in how Americans are feeling about this. Harry Enton, here to help. What are you seeing in these numbers?
Yeah, I would say that this is from at least a political...
Just real quick, not super important, just a minor gripe here. Harry, what the fuck is up with your shoes, man? You have like a nice presentation here, and then you're going with like tan suede shoes? What's up with that? This outfit deserves better shoes, man.
Harry Enton, here to help. What are you seeing in these numbers?
Yeah, I would say that this is from at least a political point of view quickly turning into a dud of a story. What am I talking about here?
Which is wild.
Which is wild.
This has been for 3 weeks.
Exactly. Take a look here. Google searches for Epstein down 89% versus just 3 weeks ago, falling through the floor. It is no longer the top term searched alongside Donald Trump's name. That's been trading off between Taros and Vladimir Putin, with obviously the meeting coming up later this week.
Nah, I think we need to keep talking about how the president is likely a child rapist.
But at this particular point, the American people's interest in this story, it's quickly becoming something of a nothing burger.
So out of sight, out of mind, maybe, is applying here a little bit. But has it impacted, have you seen numbers that has impacted Trump's popularity, favorability, anything?
No, not really. I mean, take a look here. Let's take a look at the overall numbers. Trump's approval rating in July of 2025, it was 45%. It's still well within that margin of error here at 44%. And you compare that to where he was in his first term at this point. He was at 37%. So he's 7 points higher, very much in a different political universe now, significantly higher in terms of his overall approval rating than he was at this point in his first term. And more than that among...
I mean, I gotta say, the cult of personality is stronger, you know? The cult of personality is stronger. Now, I will also throw out there that, like, I think when the tariffs really start hitting, I think that number is going to plummet. Right now, a lot of those Trump supporters are watching Fox News and they're just going, yeah, things are still fine. Things are still fine. Yeah, the price increases are coming, folks.
Republicans, his approval rating is near a record high, hovering right at about that 90% mark. So no, he hasn't lost any of that base. And when it comes to that center of the electorate, he's basically holding on there. And his overall approval rating, 44%, is pretty gosh darn good for him, considering where he was at this point in term number one.
What do you think is behind it? Why there hasn't been more movement?
Yeah, why hasn't there been more movement? I think this is pretty simple. Take a look here. Nation's top issue is the Epstein case. This is the number of respondents. This isn't the percentage of respondents. This is the number of respondents. In our last CNN poll, look at this. 0 respondents said that the Epstein case was the top issue. How about among independents? 0 independents said that. And among Republicans, and therefore overall, just a single one. So yes, there used to be a lot of interest in this story, but the bottom...
Well, I don't think any of us ever thought the Epstein case was the number one issue for the country. Like ever? But I still think it's pretty goddamn important.
Bottom line is that even amongst those...
Like, I happen to be of the old school belief that if the president is a child rapist, we should probably send him to prison, you know? Call me old-fashioned, though.
Who had high interest in this story, it wasn't something that they thought was all that important. And as I said at the beginning, the interest in this story has fallen off the table.
Which also, when you look at this and you compare it to just the attention that Capitol Hill was giving it, Donald Trump supporters were giving it, congressional committees were giving it, it is incongruous.
I would just say this. Donald Trump has some of the best political...
Oh, yeah, no. Liz Galahad, 100%. So what I need to make it clear what I mean, right? If you're watching modern conservative media, you genuinely are completely untethered from reality, right? The economy doesn't really mean anything to you. It's just this nebulous idea. As long as you can pay your bills, you know, You're generally going to be like, yeah, the economy is just whatever Fox News says it is. I hold on to maybe a naive belief that once businesses are going out, like just being snuffed out by these tariffs, once like the actual impact of these tariffs hits, I think that it's going to be more apparent what a bad economy actually feels like. But they're going to have to actually feel the bad economy before they realize it's getting worse. You know, they have to notice the boiling water. Again, it's gonna have to hurt. And unfortunately, it's these policies hurt everybody. I really don't think anything will change their minds if the Epstein shit doesn't. This feels like cope. Well, I mean, I have to put this out there. And that is my fundamental belief in the ability of every human being to change their mind, right? And it could very well be that like 20% of Republicans just are completely beyond reach. But I don't think it's 100%. Do you think every single person who disagrees with you is like incapable of changing their mind and agreeing with you on a topic? Yeah, like I think that there is a tipping point, and I think that there's a difference between anxiety about the economy and actually getting fucked by the economy, you know? I think there's a big difference between those two things. Everyone who disagrees with me is too far gone. I see you, Badger Tide. I see you. They will stay with Trump no matter what. I think that's silly. I think that's silly and, like, naive. I don't think that is true to human nature. Like, again, do you think that you are unshakable in your political ideas? Do you think that when you were a teenager that you were unable to be moved in what you believed? Do you think that, like, yes? Yes. You have always believed the entirety of everything you believe now. So, Alan Smith, in your worldview, you have never changed and grown. Your understanding of the world has never deepened. You have never changed your mind about a single thing. You tried peanut butter one time and it was fucking bad, and anyone who enjoys it is evil. Like, no, come on. Someone can learn to like the taste of peanut butter. Someone can change their mind about innocuous things. Someone can change their mind about goddamn serious things. Yeah. So understand that when I say people can change their minds, I'm talking about people. And people are fallible. People fall into cultish thinking. But that does not mean that their minds can't change. Jesus. Like, I gotta be honest here, guys. If you are fundamentally of the opinion that people cannot change, then you need to get the fuck out. You need to get the fuck out of this community. You need to get the fuck out of thinking about politics. You need to get the fuck out of doing anything in this space. Alan Smith, you have the same level of intelligence as livestock. When you think of your opponents and ideological enemies as literally subhuman, you need to go fucking take a walk. You need to, like, go and, like, reevaluate your life. When someone has, like, I'm sorry, when someone, even who agrees with me, has devolved to the point where you're like, yes, everyone who disagrees with my political stances are literally subhuman. I'm sorry, you are subhuman. You are proving that point. You have abdicated your humanity to place yourself on a pedestal above other human beings. And I find that disgusting, okay? I find that absolutely repellent and repugnant.
With how bleak and chaotic things seem at times, your stubborn optimism and pragmatic attitude are a real breath of fresh air.
Thank you, Shootbang, for the $15 dono. Appreciate it. The bare basic idea that I need everyone in this community to embrace is that people can change. There you go, Alan Smith. I can work with the idea that our political opponents are evil, but to give them the power of being irredeemably evil, like, I'm sorry, this isn't the fucking fairy tale. No one is like that. No one is like that. Everyone is capable of change. Everyone is capable of coming to a better ideological understanding of the world. And all of us have, at some point or another, had ideas that were bad. And frankly, if you haven't, if you are one of those people who did simply spring into being with all of the correct opinions, all of the correct politics, perfect, unimpeachable ideas, you are the product of an insanely random and lucky moral chance. No one is that lucky, and everyone has the capacity to learn, grow, and get better. And I know that because, like, I was fucking raised in a conservative, evangelical, cultish mindset. I don't have that anymore. The only reason I'm able to grow beyond that is because people explained things, gave me a chance, and I learned and became better. I'm an ex-conservative, former LGBTQIA plus hater. Sincerely regret those days, but I've grown past them. Same Minute Rice. I'm a trans woman. I grew up deeply evangelical. I literally would ask in public to other people, hey, as Christians, what are we supposed to think about these queer people? You know, are we supposed to hate them? Like, what's the deal? Because I didn't know. And so the entire premise when we engage in politics and in the process of movement building is to understand that our goal is to organize together to build up enough of us so that we can pressure others and convince others to join us. People who might not have the same politics as us to obtain our politics. Again, just like earlier this stream, I was talking about my mom. My mom, who has been like an ardent liberal for her entire life. Really big Hillary Clinton supporter. Really big establishment Democratic shill. She's talking about the need for Nuremberg trials for ICE. She's talking about the need for like a cleaning of the Democratic leadership. That's in the span of like 8 months. So never give people up for lost. Never think that these people are beyond being reached, because they're not. They're just not. And I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what straw is going to break the camel's back. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm hoping that it's the pain of tariffs. And if it's not the pain of tariffs, maybe it's the shame of seeing mass demonstrations in the streets. Maybe it's the social unrest that will do it. Maybe it's the cruelty of the state's crackdown on the marginalized. I don't know what it's going to be. For every single person, it's going to be a little bit different. But everyone has their breaking point. And like that, either that breaking point happens via social pressure or argumentation, or it happens like due to violent unrest. Oh, Lady Raincloud, I'm talking in the aggregate. There are definitely going to be people who just do not give a fuck. There are going to be people who can't be reached, but we cannot let that become the rule for our thinking. That I think that's my takeaway, is that there are going to be people who are unreachable. You know, there is going to be like that. There's going to be like that 20% of people that no matter what happens are going to be unreachable. I just don't believe that that is 100% of everyone who voted for Trump. Nah, Lady Raincloud, you've already been reached by our movement. It's all good. All I'm saying is either, that there are kind of two options. Either we are able to build a peaceful movement that is able to galvanize the wider society into political action, or we're not able to do that, and things go down a very, very different road. And I'm hoping that it doesn't go down that second one, because then we start talking about very different things. We also have to take a look here, because I noticed something in these Epstein files and the talks about them. So this is an article in The Atlantic. Virginia Giuffre's family was shocked that Trump described her as stolen, which might seem old news. It's from July 30th. But this part stood out to me, and I'm not going to get past this because we don't have to, right? Giuffre alleged that she had been recruited by Maxwell while working at Mar-a-Lago as a high schooler, and had then been sexually abused from around 1999 to 2002 by Epstein. Now, in 1999, let's take a look here. So, 1999, right? That would have been when she was 15 or 16 years old. In the testimony of a video we saw the other day from Stacey, oh god, I'm blanking on her name. Yeah, Stacey Williams. There we go. We watched an interview the Daily Beast did with Stacey Williams about her time dating Jeffrey Epstein. And at one point, she talked about her model friends who were some as young as 15 dating 40-year-olds. One of the things that stood out to me was that in her story, Donald Trump sexually assaulted her in front of Jeffrey Epstein, basically fondling her entire body while Jeffrey continued to talk to him, and neither of them really talked about it or noted it in any way while Donald Trump did this. And it seems like Donald Trump, in a lot of these stories, has a kind of MO, where he really enjoys hitting on the partners or girlfriends of his friends. And this was actually noted a while back by one Michael Wolff. Michael Wolff has also talked about Donald Trump's essentially his deep and lingering desire to have sex with other people's wives or partners. That really got me thinking. I went up and looked up this. This is from 2019, and this is from the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. And you'll note that this is Julie Brown v. Ghislaine Maxwell v. Virginia Giuffre. And Maxwell here is the defendant in this case. And I decided to search through this document for Donald Trump. You know, what references to Trump are made here. And that led me to a pretty interesting portion here, to this article from the Daily Mail from around 2011. And it's about Virginia Giuffre being recruited by Bill Clinton. Okay? Or not Bill Clinton, Jeffrey Epstein, and how she met Bill Clinton, right? But there is an interesting part here. I think it is, or maybe it's, it might be Exhibit A. It's Exhibit A. That's my bad. But again, it is an article here from the Daily Mail. And it's from, again, 2011. Prince Andrew and the 17-year-old girl, his sex offender friend, flew to Britain to meet him. And I'm just going to go down here. We're going to skip a lot of these really, really awful details. So, in this article, Giuffre describes the initial abuse by Epstein. But what's interesting here is what happens later. There's a part here where she's talking about the last time she met Prince Andrew, right? By now, however, Epstein had started to hint that she was getting too old for him at 17 years old. And people around her started to talk about how she was getting too old for Jeffrey Epstein. And I want to highlight this small interaction. It's a small interaction she had with Donald Trump that is shared in this interview. Yeah, Florida was where her father was a maintenance manager at Donald Trump's country club, Mar-a-Lago. Virginia got a part-time job as a changing room assistant, which is where, soon after her 15th birthday, she met Ghislaine Maxwell. Epstein's many Hollywood pals include Matt Groening, creator of The Simpsons. Jeffrey once had me give Matt a foot massage when he was flying on the jet with us, Virginia says. He laughed and did drawings of Bart and Homer for my little brother and my dad. I also met Naomi Campbell at a birthday party of hers on a yacht in the south of France. She's a friend of Ghislaine's, but she was a real bitch to me. She was very fake. She turned away when we were introduced by Ghislaine and Jeffrey. Donald Trump was also a good friend of Jeffrey's. He didn't partake in sex with any of us, but he flirted with me. He'd laugh and tell Jeffrey, "You've got the life." And I want to really emphasize again that Virginia Giuffre was with Jeffrey Epstein from 1999 to 2002. And she met Ghislaine Maxwell when she was 15. and Donald Trump was flirting. The thing I want to really put forward here is, okay, Donald Trump was hitting on a teenager. And if he was hitting on this teenager in New York, for example, there is a decent chance he was hitting on a child who was under the age of consent. Perhaps more than a decent chance. If he was hitting on her in Florida, well, he was definitely hitting on a child under the age of consent. I believe at the time in New York, the age of consent was 17. In Florida, age of consent was 18 at the time. So I just thought that that was an interesting kind of period on this piece. These are articles, by the way, introduced in the lawsuit Virginia Giuffre filed against Ghislaine Maxwell. So all I want to say is, anyone who looks into this in any amount of seriousness, like, dude, release the Epstein files. Release the Epstein files, release the Epstein files, release the Epstein files. Okay? It's, we need to know. We need to know. We literally have testimonies from people, and you know what? Let's just throw this out there. The fact that Donald Trump was Jeffrey Epstein's best friend in the 90s and early aughts. The fact that he talked about Virginia Giuffre by name. Donald Trump absolutely knows who this woman was. Donald Trump hit on this child. And we should never, ever, ever let it go. I think their intention is to not release the files ever, Kasia. What are the chances they destroyed the whole document? Well, there never has been one whole document. What they have are, hundreds of thousands of pages of evidence. And they have thousands of people who have seen that evidence unredacted. We have, people in the FAA who have the flight logs. We have people in the Treasury Department like Scott Bessant who have seen the financial information about Jeffrey Epstein. My point being, like, it's not like you push a button and it all goes in the shredder. Like, at this point, too many people have seen it, and I think that at some point, enough of it is going to come out. That's my hope, anyway. Honestly, if they had destroyed the entire document, I think that's tantamount to, admitting guilt, Yeah, 46% of Trump voters said they wouldn't care if he was indicted in the documents. I think worth noting, that is still 54% of people who would be swayed away from Trump if it was revealed, and that is still a pretty significant number of people. Also, worth noting that from the testimony of many of the people that Epstein trafficked, at least who have testified publicly, many of them are aware of who the other victims are and who the perpetrators are. And I imagine at some point, more people are going to come forward. It should be 0%, though. I mean, it should be, Smelanie. I agree with you. Yeah, and also, again, I think the cover-up in a lot of cases indicates a lot more guilt than just releasing most of the documents would have been, And the fact that they can't even release these documents because Donald Trump is afraid of what is going to happen if they're released, I think it indicates that there's some there. His drones have skeletons of their own. Royce Harrington, I know that you were talking about grinders to fit the dust in a closet. I know you're talking about grinders in like a more morbid sense, but genuinely, can I just throw out this one idea here? If someone were to be in or around Washington, D.C. and active on Grindr, and were to, I don't know, match with someone prominent enough, there is a national service you could provide by getting dirt on one of these people. and getting them to leak the Epstein files. There's a non-0% plausibility that someone would be able to do that. You know? Like, it's a powerful weapon. It's a powerful weapon. Wasn't sure where this was going. Look, I don't know. I'm just saying, all's fair in love and war, am I right? Yeah, exactly, Hypervisor. The fact that, like, the one time a victim of Jeffrey Epstein's name has passed through his lips is to, like, try and defend the actions of Ghislaine Maxwell. That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, bottom your way to the top.
Riverboat deck is going to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube is switching streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, being plenty more. Her sense of fashion